Okay, just a little bit of admin stuff here, real quick. Let me know if it's blurry or anything like that. I'll make sure we get the. Pretty sure it's not. Okay. I believe that's pretty good. All focused and everything. Bow tie hammer's in there already. So let me plug my phone in. Make sure we got thing going there. Bow tie hammer's been warming up. Now it's not a bow tie yet. Let me know if sound is good. Let me know. Let me know if my sound is good. If you guys can hear me speaking. Okay. Fixed my leathers up. I'm still trying to work the contrast on these. I like the HD and the 12 megapixel, but for some reason, everything's turned. I need a contrast or shoot through a screen of some sort that's going to do it for me. So, all right. All right. Thanks, Ben. Appreciate it. I'm going to be using gloves today. I normally don't use gloves. Even when I'm welding, I don't use gloves. But it's going to be really hot today. So I want to make sure that I'm not losing heat because I can't stand the heat. And what we're doing here is we're forging down on both heads and the cheeks to form our bow tie. can't have a glove on my hammer hand. And it may be slightly different than what the original one I made. Well, it will be different. I can tell you that already. Um, the bow tie hammer actually was a mistake, but it turned out to be really nice. And it wasn't something that was super planned. But we'll get this thing flattened, and then I'm not going to be fullering this one at all. So I mushroom out the heads, across the heads this way, in line with the eye, instead of fullering down. I could fuller down, but I don't want those fullering marks in there. It needs to have a nice transition across the top of the eye and into the other head. And then if you have fullering marks in there, well, a lot of times it happens is it's really hard to get those out without a lot of forging involved. I mean, if I had a bigger fuller, um, probably a fullering piece just about the same size as the stock I'm using, that'd be super simple because you just press down, boom, and you got it done. But we're gonna get this thing flattened out, and I was gonna cut the ends off, but I think I'm just gonna tell Dan Bly from P&W, from Pacific Northwest Metal and Wrenches, that he's just gonna get it. He wanted a 2.5. I think it's probably gonna be closer to 3. He's just gonna get it that way. I like the look and feel of the hammer. Now, I want to leave as much as possible in it prior to grinding, and so that's another reason why I'm not gonna cut it down, because I'm gonna forge the heads here in a minute to where everything's gonna mushroom out in that bow tie manner. A controlled, well, what turns out to be, when you're upsetting on an end, you want to clean up the edges. Well, you're only cleaning up 2 of the edges. And so really what happened in the beginning was that I was trying to straighten out the eye and everything on the original hammer. And it just kept going one way and kept going one way, and it wasn't working. Kept straightening everything out until I ended up with this bow tie look. And I was like, hey, that's not a bad looking hammer. I mean, the owner didn't like it, mainly because he had his heart set on a different style. And so I rebuilt the hammer in the way that he likes it, and then he kept them both, obviously. But yeah, so this goes all the way flat. There's no elevation change from head across the cheeks to the other head on both sides. It's completely flat. The only elevation change on the surface is across from head through the gully, over the eye to the other head. Pretty sore. Been working out, you know. I'm doing my workouts. Obviously, my kids can't do my workouts, even though it's funny. I give my dad shit all the time for freaking being a mountain goat and making me look bad. I make myself look bad when it comes to walking in the mountains, but I give my kids shit because, I mean, they're all athletes. They have all the athletic ability. I was a very athletic jock, but the athleticism was there, always was there. It was my willingness to go that extra mile to continue it. Uh, it unfortunately, we're not. The Thompsons are very, very athletic, very, very um, physical and everything, and lots of natural strength. But if we don't, it's funny. If we try and take time off, or we try and cut corners, it doesn't work for us, right? It's either the hard way or no way at all, and that's across the board. You know, there's no we're natural athletes, but we have to work super hard to keep our bodies in shape. We're not gifted with the gene that allows us to stay slim and trim. Strength's all there. It's still there. The strength is there. It just doesn't look pretty. It's not packaged in a nice bow, you know. Um, but I was telling my kids, I was like, shit, guys, we have, you guys are all athletic. Even my son, who's disabled. I mean, he is. Everything's a little different for him because he looks at the world a little different. So you got to really have to explain and force his body into situations that forces it to, when he's working out, to do it correctly. Um, but it's like, dude, you're letting your 350-pound, fully 100% disabled dad out freaking, time wise you. So we go for time. So it's 2 minutes. It's like circuit training. Don't count reps, and we're not doing weights. It's all calisthenic type workouts. And my kids are like, I'm tired. Oh my god. Oh geez, it hurts. And I'm like, what the hell, guys? Don't you think it hurts me too? I'm doing this for you, and for me, but mainly to show you that your broke down fat ass dad can get out there and do it. You have no problem doing it. It's just, my thing was that I would work out, and I was built like a brick shit house. Um, and when I was in the service, I'd work out, I'd work out, I'd work out, I'd work out. I was never like super trim. Even when I was trim, I didn't look trim. I still looked, just big. And um, but I lost my train of thought here because I was looking at my hammer. And so basically, what I'm trying to get my kids to understand is that yeah, you're hurting, but you're not injured, right? It doesn't feel all that great because you're out of shape, type of deal. And so, I mean, like today, I'm walking around like feeling like I just had a leg day at the gym. When I worked calves the last 2 days, calves and quads the last 2 days with just no weight squats and you know little ankle lifters and shit like that. And then working with 15-pound dumbbells, because you don't need a lot. I don't need to be massive. Even just doing push-ups for a week, um, my body, it's because your body has memory, right? No matter how out of shape you get, your body, it doesn't take much to get back what you had. And when I was in the service, I would eat like a fucking dump truck, right? Or almost to heat again. Well, when I got out of the service and started working and not, having, in the service, you have your job. A lot of your job is staying in shape. Um, and so it's part of your job is working out and making sure you stay in shape for what you're doing. And like I said, I was never a trim guy. I was just big, strong, burly son of a bitch. I still kind of am. I just have a little more padding around the midsection. But and I wear a B cup now. But um, I just continued eating that way, and that eating style, you know, turned me into what I am today. All my weight is right here. you know, legs are trim, shoulders are trim, upper back is trim, but it's all stomach. And so, and I can't run anymore because of injuries and stuff. And so I'm just gonna start doing calisthenics, push-ups, sit-ups, flutter kicks, stuff like that, and you know, get back into shape. Um, because this right here, if you're not in shape, this right here will wear you out. All right, enough about me. Let's get back to the work. Hey now, as I'm losing heat, uh, that was a bit warm. Okay, we're gonna start working these heads now. So we got a little of the bow tie going on. You can see this head compared to that one, but we're gonna really work these heads. So we're gonna go to the next side on the next heat and work it. So this hammer has a rounding and a flat. Now remember that this is going to a metal shop, not a blacksmith shop. So our hardness on it needs to be a touch harder than our anvil. So a lot of anvils between 53 and 55 hardness, we're looking to go above that. So we're going to quench hot and we're going to temper back, but we're really only tempering the eye because the heads on these need to be able to withstand beating on cold steel. And that's the key. That's the biggest difference. A blacksmith hammer, we try not to hit cold steel. Yeah, I'm beating on it on the top of this with my blacksmith hammer, but that's just to help conserve what heat I have, right? Good morning. And and so I don't like to do that because these are soft heads. These are soft. These are like sitting at 48, 49, maybe 50, so that it takes the damage and my anvil doesn't. And that's a lot of things that a lot of blacksmiths don't understand is they go and buy a hammer from a guy who makes hammers, right? And not necessarily me because I inform a lot and I put out a lot of information and try and make sure people that are buying to understand that this isn't your like going down to your hardware store and buying a hammer. You're buying a blacksmith hammer. And if you use it for anything other than hitting hot steel, you're gonna mar the surface. Period. Unless you're hitting a flat strike plate like I am. Now, and I tell them, I says the hammer is designed to take the damage so your anvil doesn't, especially with new smiths. new smiths and myself included. I mean, I've seen David Roeder miss. I've seen Mike Rowley miss. I've seen David Spurlock miss. Um, and all these guys, what we have in common is time behind an anvil. You know, between 8 and 20 years, right? Um, so, and we still miss. And we hit our anvil, and we're like, I never check my anvil when I miss. I look at my hammer and go, okay, we got to dress that, you know, type of deal. And I have to dress. This is an old hammer. We got to get that thing dressed up. Now, when I rehandle this, I'm going to flip it over because it has a bend in it from how not really a bend, but the heads are deformed this way on the top towards the eye because of how I do my hammering a lot. And so I'll flip it and work it back the other way. But everybody misses. And if you have a nice anvil, like I have nice antique anvils. I got a Trenton over there that I need to get it put on a stand. I got my Peterite. It's not a nice anvil, but it's a big 160-pound Peterite. Um, Now I have a 132-pound big boy Amazon special, and it's probably the nicest anvil I have. And it's nice. It's the nicest anvil I have, but not the most expensive. All right. It runs around 350. If you can get it lower than that, maybe 325 right there, and that's shipped. Um, this is a Hercules Anvil out of Brooklyn, and it was an old shop anvil. You can see in the top of it where they filled, oxyacetylene cuts and all this other bullshit in it. And it's been treating me really good for the years that I've been using it. It was my first anvil that I had. Great anvil, and it's my go-to. It's the one that I go to the most, just for the fact that I know how it feels, I know how it reacts, and that may sound funny talking about a big hunk of steel, but each anvil has a different feel to it. The Trenton, and I'll have to get that. I need to get that set up on a stand, and got to get all my anvils set up on stands so that I can just trade them out and focus on them and talk about them, and that way those that are looking for anvils can understand how they work and how they feel. The Trenton has a way different feel. It's taller, it's longer, it has a much larger step down onto the cutting table, much longer horn, um, a lot less symmetrical horn as well on it. It has more of a cone shape to it. It does have a belly on it, like a farrier's anvil does, because it takes on that look of the the horse's hoof or foot, um, and it's completely different. Now, this Amazon anvil um, is more of a blacksmith anvil. It has more of the characteristics of a German or French, you know, double horn. Um, has the big flat tapered heel on it. Big. This one has a big wide horn on it, which is really nice for doing certain um, forging techniques. And I really like the tapered heel. I didn't think I was going to, but I really like having this big flat heel on it that tapers out, because if you watch Black Bear Forge, he just got a new anvil in, big old 400 plus pounder, and it has the same pattern as this 132 pounder. Um, and he likes it for the same reasons I like the tapered heel. Is that there are times where you cannot work on the main face of your anvil, and so moving out here to a tapered heel allows you to get into places that you can't get into on these wide heels for the on these farrier style anvils. This is a blacksmith's anvil. This is a farrier anvil. Completely different. The London pattern um, was designed at a time where the blacksmith and the farrier were one and the same. Okay, back to work. Enough talking. Shut up, Nathan. Do your job. I need to cool down this side next time we go in. Okay, we're going to work on these heads again. There she goes. Now she's looking like the bow tie. Okay, now we got to flip her around and go the other way. Now I'm not using all my heat because I want this to keep heat in it. So I'm not building a lot of stress into it. This will keep the amount of heat cycles down that I'm doing. Okay, so when you're building a hammer, I always wanted to build hammers. I remember telling my dad when I started this, I like building knives, I like building tongs, but I love building hammers. And when I first started, I told my dad, I says, I just want to build hammers and sell hammers, and that's all I want to do. I don't want to really do anything else. He goes, well, why don't you go do it? Well, you can't. I mean, you can just build hammers. I could just say, I'm not building knives anymore, guys. I'm just going to build hammers. Well, here comes the issue with that. You're never going to, I am never going to sell as many hammers as I have knives. That's all there is to it. Um, and it's just not going to happen. Now, I would love to be able to just build hammers and just have a wall of all the different go through, and I could do that. I probably will do that at some point. Is just take and go to my book and go, I'm building that hammer, and then I'm building this hammer, and then I'm building that hammer, and then I'm building this hammer, and just have them up there, you know. But there's a time where, like, if I want to just be a tool maker, where I make tools that people use, and that's why I make knives, because knives are a tool. But at the same time, knives have to be held to a different rate, a different cost, because they are more art form than they are tool, when it comes down to price. A knife, a lot of times, is purchased on the beauty of it and less about, word of mouth. Man, that's a great knife, or, and do everything you want type of deal. Okay, we are very visual creatures, and um, the a lot of times you won't sell a piece if it's visually inept. Doesn't matter what it can do. If you're not designing for the visual client, you're doing yourself a disservice. Hammers, on the other hand, are, when somebody pictures a hammer, it's big, it's heavy, it's rough, it's, tough, it's meant to break and go through stuff. It's not necessarily to the layman about the visual cue. It's the feel, tactile, picking it up, touching it, talking to someone who says, "Man, this hammer is outstanding." You know, a little bit of the visual cue comes into it, but not as much as like a knife. You know, the same thing with like gouges and chisels, and a lot of it comes down to, which reminds me, I have to go build a set of chisels, get them finished for a buddy of mine, um, Mark McVeigh, and it comes down to use. What can they do? You know, what are you doing that somebody else isn't? You know, type of deal. How are your tools better than this other person's? And that all comes down to use. Um, the same thing with the hammer. Is it balanced? Does it feel good? I have a client, Steve Katz, right now. Now he hasn't been able to get at me, but he has one of my hammers that he teaches entire classes to students and says, "This is the hammer you need to use. This is the hammer that you want." And he's trying to get to a point now that where he can order a big batch of the hammers, identical ones that I made him, so that all of his students could use them while they're at his classes. Um, and that's a cool pat on the back for me. Um, you know, I take pride in my hammers being balanced. They're big, but they're balanced. You know, I don't necessarily have a type that I pretty much do everything. Try and keep them fresh and up to date. You know, try not to do what everybody else does, and you know, big high cheeks, top and bottom cheek swells, and you know, super wide flat cheeks going into the heads, and that really isolates those heads. You know, I try to stay away from that. And it's not that I can't do it. It's just that's what everybody else does. Yeah, and there's blacksmiths and bladesmiths look at hammers the way everybody looks at our knives, right? We look at a hammer and a pair of tongs, if you're a tong guy, like, oh my God, those are beautiful. I need to have those type of deal. And it's everybody else looks at it and goes, well, it's just a fucking hammer and a pair of tongs. Says, no, you don't understand. These are the hammer and the pair of tongs type of deal. Um, and everybody prefers a certain type. You know, some people like rounding hammers, some people like cross pins, some people like diagonal pins, some people like um, straight pins. You know, and that's all they use. I like hammers. You've seen me on here. I don't use one particular hammer in a build. Here pretty soon you'll see me on the 6 pound short sledge, and I'll do some planishing with the dog's head, and I'll use a 1 pounder on a 3 pound hammerhead. And you know, it's just I go through because each hammer has a purpose, so I use every single hammer. I don't have one hammer. I have the big one you've been seeing me use, the big 3 pounder that I use. That's my workhorse. That's the heavy forging one that I can swing all day long without tiring out. You know, the 6 pound short sledge, yeah, you're not going to swing that all day long. It's not one won't be good for your body to swing it all day long either. So finding a hammer that is um, feels really good for you. It is a good weight. I think a 2.5 to 3 pound, a 2.5 is almost too small to be a really workhorse, power horse hammer. You almost need a 3 to 3.5 to really. That's your workhorse. That's what does the majority of the work, the big work, and then you start stepping down through your other hammers. And so finding your hammer as a blacksmith, bladesmith is almost as important as what you're making, because a lot of times what turns people off is that they go to Harbor Freight and they buy a Harbor Freight hammer and it doesn't feel right. Well, the main reason is the handles are really small, the heads aren't blacksmith heads, they're really hard to control because they don't face them, they don't dress them up, and we'll have to do a um, little live show at some point on dressing your hammer. Going to Harbor Freight, buying a new hammer, and then dressing it so that it feels good and works good. but a lot of times you can't afford because it's like if you're looking at a 3 pound hammer from me, uh, that's $50 a pound, right? And so you're looking at 100, 200, 300, 250 bucks actually. Yeah, I gotta do math this morning. Oh my gosh. So 250 bucks for a 3 pound head. And that's a lot of money. I don't know if even right now, if I was a smith, I don't know if I could justify buying a hammer for 250 bucks. Even right now. Um, and a lot of that is because I make my own hammers. Um, but I went down and bought a Harbor Freight hammer and used that for years until I got to the point where I was able to build working hammers. My first hammers sucked. They were terrible. So, but let's get back to this hammer. We only have 3 hours this morning. So, and I need to get this ready to go for tonight's Patreon only show where it's finishing this hammer. And then tomorrow, if you haven't looked at the schedule at rustyhammerforge.com live broadcast schedule under online content, tomorrow we're working on flatters. Okay, we need to go that side because we're going to mushroom the other side now. Oh, there it goes. Another reason I'm using this anvil today over another anvil is that the hammerhead length where my bow ties are, the heads fall off the edge, which allows me to keep that mushroom. Now I could do the same thing on my Trenton, and I probably will. My Trenton has a bigger, much bigger hardy hole and pritchel. It's a 125 pounder with a big hardy and a big pritchel. This is a 100 pounder, and she stands up really good. But I need to get the Trenton on a stand. So, but yeah, so they're gonna get this hammer ready to go for the grinder, and then tonight's show from 5 to 7 is Patreon only, and it's all finishing. It's we're gonna be on the grinders. We're gonna get it ready for quench, and you don't need a. I don't hew my own handles. I used to, but it's just a pain in the ass anymore. If I have a specific hammer handle length, then I'll go buy like shovel handle or something like that, um, and or a sledgehammer, and work that piece. I'll hew it from that piece. I could go down to our exotic hardwoods place and buy a big old slab of hickory. Um, and I've thought about it, but at this point, it's just more work. And so if I'm buying that for an exorbitant amount of price, that has to be part of my stuff going in. I don't charge for the steel. I mainly only charge for what my time is worth. And so you're talking maybe instead of $50 a pound, $75 a pound, and it gets a little more expensive as we go up. So I just go down to our local ranch and feed here in town, Cascade, and dig through their hammer stock and find the hammer handles that I want. And I put a lot of times too. Oh, we'll go back. This reminded me. Another thing that puts them off, a lot of people off at first when they're smithing is, like I was saying, it doesn't feel right in their hand because the handle's too small. Well, that is true, and the handles break because nothing's designed. Everybody. I've actually had guys, they break a handle out of it, instead of going and buying a new handle, put it in it, they'll go buy a new hammer, right? I'm like, oh, can I have that head? Then I get the head and I put a new handle in it. We're golden. But there are people out there that do that. Oh, my hammer broke. Well, there's nothing wrong with the hammer. The handle broke, type of deal. And so, well, that's a big thing. I like to put especially for anything over 2 pounds, 2 pounds and above, I'll put a 3 to 4 pound handle in it. It will never break out of it. You'll be able to just use that hammer for what its intended purpose is to be a blunt tool to do lots of work. So when you're looking for hammers, pay attention to the size of the handle. This right here is a 3 to 4 pound hammer handle, right? And the only thing, I mean, it's been beat up, and it is, and the main reason is because this is one of my first hammers I did, and so the eye's a little rough, and so it's really rough on hammer hafts. And so just be patient, look for the proper stuff. We'll go into grain of wood here in the Patreon only show tonight. What you're looking for when you're buying handles for stuff, and why you buy this handle over that handle, and this handle goes in this head, and that handle goes in that head, and why you're doing it. And well, I will say this: there is a hammer guy out there. I can't remember his name. His hammers are highly sought after, but he actually runs a split, a kerf, down in past the eye into the body of the hammer that is supposedly a shock absorber. Um, I don't see how those stand up. I mean, it's very cool looking. But those people that have had his hammers say they swear by it. I don't know how he gets it to work, but it is what it is. He has a cool thing going, and his hammers don't fail. When I even if I have a hammerhead that it breaks out of, I tell my clients, you can send it back to me. I'll put a new head in and I'll ship it back to you. I'll put a new handle in and I'll ship it back to you. It's just one of those deals. They could easily go do it themselves, but and some of them do just say, nah, we're not going to spend the shipping. I don't want you spending the shipping type of deal. And it's like, well, okay, whatever. Then go buy this handle for that hammer, and you'll be good. So, but yeah, I mean, you still have failures. I've never had a failure on a head, but I don't hew my own wood. I don't do any of that stuff. And so if I did hew it, the price would reflect the guarantee that it had. Um, the other thing I'd spend almost 90% of my extra time looking at grain, just looking at wood grain. And that gets to be daunting, real daunting. Let me tell you what. All right. So we have 3 hours this morning, but we may not need it. May not need all of that time. What I'm doing, I'm looking at that head and seeing which way my mushroom is, so I can continue working the sides that aren't quite up to snuff yet. That's looking really good. And this is going to Dayton, Washington, Pacific Northwest Metal and Wrenches. Now she's really looking, you really can't see her in that with the amount of glare. One thing I love this camera, but man, outside, if I had it in my other program and I was on a better computer, I could adjust the contrast. But my computer that I have out here isn't all that great and doesn't like to run that separate program where I can adjust the contrast. So until I get a better computer, it's just going to be grayed out. Now, like I was saying before, getting a manual break screen in here that darkens everything, cuts down the glare, allows you guys to be able to see what I'm seeing, the color that I'm seeing. You guys are just seeing everything bright, no matter how hot it is. And it's just a ball of sun right here. You're not really seeing any of the edges or anything like that. I'm going to play with different filters on a stand in front of the screen here shortly, and maybe a yellow filter. A yellow filter would filter out some of that glare. I may try that, and I can just get those, the same type of filters that used for reading, like anybody who has slight dyslexia or anything like that uses a filter. It helps them concentrate and read. They're colored and so block certain wavelengths, and a yellow is going to wash a little bit of that brightness out and allow you to. It's almost like be like sunlight washing out your color. It's going to wash the color down and that glare for you. They may have to use a couple different filters in between it, just for right now until I can get my computer cleaned up and working with the OBS program, because I can go in there and mess with the brightness and sharpness and contrast and hue and all that stuff within that program for this camera that I can't do on YouTube right now. So bear with me. I know it's just a big ball of fuzz right here until it gets really cooled down. When I put it in there, you guys are like, well, that's still super hot. Well, it's cooled down to the point to where I could forge it some more, but building in, the colder it gets, you start building in stressors. And in a hammer, you don't want a hammer that's going to, even in a after the quench and heat cycle, there you could have, not heat cycled that enough, right? So deep down inside, there might be a crack just waiting to go, and that hammer hits just right sometime, it'll freaking explode. And those things coming off of that hammer when they explode are just like bullets. I mean, they'll go through you, and which is not a good thing. We don't want that happening at all. So, um, and I don't have a heat treat oven, so I use a tempering iron, and stick it in there. I heat up the tempering iron on a cold hammer, stick it on there, and then torch the cheeks, draw my colors, and we'll be good to go. That's what you guys will see that are going to get on Patreon tonight, is grinding and heat treatment, heat cycle. If we can get all the way to temper, that'd be great because you guys don't need to see me handle it. It's just putting a handle in it. But if I can get it ground, it heat cycled, won't be annealing it. That's gonna take too long. So will I'll probably normalize. Well, actually, I'll anneal it after this. So I'll leave it in there, shut off the forge, and I won't touch it until tonight when I come out here at 5 o'clock, and it'll be annealed. And then we'll go up to the grinder, get it all into shape, weigh it, stamp it, and run it through a couple heat cycles, quench it, temper it, clean it up, and it's ready to go. Except for just final buffing and stuff like that. So, I mean, this hammer has a lot more forging in it than this hammer does. I mean, you can see all the little flutes and fullers in it, but I mean that's really not a lot of forging. Um, when I made this hammer, I forged it in and then took a half round file and cleaned them up. Anymore, I'm just leaving them as is, leaving them even if they're a little bit off, they're not straight. I like it like that, and I like it to look like it's not machined. How it's been used on hand tools, machine the flats, right, and machine the heads on a grinder, but the forging I try and leave some of that forging in there, unless I'm doing a hammer like this guy right here, where you grind it way out, and because you want that elongated head. I really like this hammer. It's another workhorse hammer of mine for finishing work and small pieces. But I don't care if I'm a little bit off on my fullery marks. It just adds more character to it, in my opinion. It's a handmade hammer. It should look like a hammer. It shouldn't look like a glob of shit, but it should look like what it is. It's a handmade hammer, and so it needs to reflect that. Um, a lot of times, one thing my biggest pet peeve is, and I know why they do it, because so that it doesn't look like a store bought hammer, but is when you leave the press marks in it on the cheeks. That drives me nuts. I mean, to me, it doesn't look good. Other people think it's outstanding. Um, I, but a lot of times, maybe it doesn't look good to me because at the time because I didn't have a press to do that with. But now that I have a press, I'm like, yeah, it still doesn't look good. To me, it looks unfinished, right? The cheeks are where you put your mark, and if you have a bunch of waves and ridges on there, you know, they just get in the way and they diffuse, the maker on there. But more power to those guys that are out there making them and selling a crap ton of them. I guarantee I'm not jealous. It's just personal preference. I don't like it. Doesn't make it a bad hammer. Comes down to aesthetics for me. Just like like I said, um, knife buyers, aesthetics. Hammer buyers, not. It is aesthetics, but they're not layman's buying those. They're guys that know what they want, know out, and then go to those that have a good reputation for making hammers and making them quick. Um, Not a lot of freaking extra time in there, and that's part of why that texture is left in there, because it's just wham bam, thank you ma'am, out the door. Thank you for your money. You know, can't wait to see you next time type of deal. And they're great hammers. I've used them. They are good hammers. They're just, in my opinion, they're ugly as sin. All right. Woo! My legs are burning. Not from this, from working out. It's good stuff. I need to flip it, go to the other side. I will take this and use up some of this heat. Get my glove. Get a little warm. Remember, this is the thick cheek, so we need to make sure we're hammering it down more than the other cheek. It's looking really good, guys and gals. Really, really good. So there we go. Now we're well below where I want to be hammering on this, and now you guys can see it. You guys can see that bow tie starting to form in there. Still really thick on this side, this cheek right here, but I'm going to be grinding it. So I'm going to continue beating on this side to flatten out the thin side and get it as flat as I can, knowing that I'll grind both sides, but won't grind this side as much. And I'll grind this side a lot more because it's a lot thicker. A few more heats here. Okay, we need to come, this side right here needs to come down a little more. It's not as pronounced as the other side. Another thing that shows up in this, what I really like, is the corners on this. What happens is they start to flute themselves. And it's a very subtle fluting that I'm not even going to touch, because it shows that character from the forging process. We're a little, and I'll leave those unground if I can. What I might do is grind it so it all looks right, looks the same. You know what I'm saying? And then take and heat it again, which won't allow me to get it completed on film today, and run it through another annealing cycle after grinding, and allow some of that scale and forge to build back up on the ground surfaces, and then grind it again and leave it there. Get it down to the size I want it. I think I am going to do that. Touch it up, get it down to the size I want it, throw it back in there, and call it good. But that's if the buyer wants it done that way. So, and he'll probably be like, hey, if you're the maker, man, you just make it. But I'm going to get it ground and see what he thinks first and say, hey, if you like the look of this, if you like the look of it, I'll leave it alone. If you want me to do this to it, do this to it, do this to it, I can do that to it. I'm mainly looking at the geometry of the face and knowing that I'm going to have to do some forging on it to make it work, or some grinding on it, and that's what's going to force me to grind the whole damn thing. So it look good. It's going to look good either way. Now we're only maybe going to use an hour of this morning. And Friday, I'm going to get the spatula finished, get that shipped out to its new owner, that and the big ladle, next week. I just keep looking in the forge because, just looking at geometry, that's a lot of what goes into the hammer. I try and do a lot of forging geometry in rather than grinding geometry in, because then I can have a hammer that is relatively rough but looks good. Now, I don't mean rough by, wow, that's rough. I mean rough by, wow, that's rough. That's cool, type of deal. Inflection. Then we still have that little dog's head. It's looking more and more as I put I may do some weird things with that one. I may make it a dog's head, but just really draw one of those heads out. So it's a heavy hammer, but it has a really small head on it. So you can really do some good dog's head work with it. Or it'll be a finishing hammer. I'll probably wait to do that one once I get my the other fullering plate done for the press. But tomorrow we got flatter. That flatter is going to be the base material is an unknown steel, but it's a high carbon uh, inch and a quarter lag bolt. Big old freaking bolt with a head on it, like a 3-inch head on it. That's an inch thick as well. So we'll make a flatter out of that, and I'll take and upset the shaft back into itself to widen everything out, so you can have a nice strike plate on it. Okay. That's a little warm. I think this is going to be the last heat. Last heat. And we'll put it back in here, let it cool down. Go have some coffee. That bow tie is looking really good. And this back side is looking nice and flat. We're good. That anvil side. Now we still have final sizing too for this. So we still have a lot to do on it. But the forging is damn near done. And we do have a decided top and bottom. I'm looking at it from both sides, and I believe this side closest to me is going to be the bottom. And there's that bow tie hammer. We'll run a bigger drift through it when we're, well, why don't we do that real quick? Why don't we just run the big drift through it? One more heat, guys. One more heat. We'll use the big drift. Do some heats with that big drift. There's the big drift. Come off with a different hammer here. So this hammer right here is an old railroad hammer for driving in railroad spikes. Well, I had no use for it as a railroad hammer, but I needed a big drift to do hammers. So I cut the end off, made a strike plate out of it, and made a drift out of it. Now it used to be longer, but doing events, teaching classes, students and myself, getting it stuck. Yeah, the learning process, right? It's all good. So we're going to drive this down both sides and get that eye drifted out. Not to final size, but get it really close. Remember, we want to put a 3 to 4 pound handle in this thing. This is the size of hammer you get from Harbor Freight. This is a Harbor Freight hammer. I still go buy them, use them as my, just do whatever I want with hammers. And this is the type of hammer I normally strike with, but to save time and heat, I'm not flipping between the two hammers. Plus, I need to redo that 3 pounder anyways, so it's not going to hurt it. But these don't always have the best handles in them. The grain's not correct. And once again, I will share the grain and what I'm talking about with grain. If you don't know, in the live show tonight at 5, only for Patreon members. Let's talk about that for a little bit. At patreon.com, you can search Rusty Hammer Forge. You can become a patron for as little as $1 a month. What you get for that $1 is the same thing everybody else gets: access to live shows, chat, everything like that. You just don't get any extra. All right. Now, if you jump to the $5 a month pledge, you, after 2 months of pledging, 2 months being a patron of mine, I send you a heavy duty Rusty Hammer Forge Maker's Mark sticker, and you can slap that anywhere you want. Now, if you want to pay $10 a month, after 12 months of paying $10 a month, you get the Patreon only Rusty Hammer Forge knife. Now, that doesn't come with a sheath unless you pay extra. Sheaths are $50. But if you just want the knife, spend 12 months as my patron at $10 a month, and you get the knife. Now, you're getting a $150 knife for 120 bucks. But what else you get with that is you get all the extra, all the little stuff that doesn't happen on the public YouTube stream, but will happen on the private YouTube stream. So it is a good deal. For $1 a month, you can get all the extra stuff. Plus, when we get enough people on there, I'm gonna start doing workshops and classes and Patreon only classes over the internet right there. Now granted, you have to have your own stuff, to do that. But, if I couldn't beat it with a stick, if I'm, $1 a month and I get a $200 class, I mean, give me a break, right? I'd take that all day long. Even at $5 a month, get a $200 class. 8-hour class that we schedule up, and we can split that between a couple different days. We could have a 2-hour here and a 2-hour there and a 2-hour there. I mean, shit, in a week or in a month, you split up that between 4 weekends. There you go. So I try and do as much content for my patrons as possible. I mean, they are giving me money for stuff. And yeah, it's not a lot of money, but it still matters. And along with your sticker and your knife, you get a handwritten letter from myself, thanking you. And, it's a cool deal. I got a handwritten letter from a fellow smith, Chris Lundstrom, who I bought my grinder from. And it really felt good getting a handwritten letter. And so I took that to stock, and I said, you know what, this is what I'm going to do for my patrons. We're getting a handwritten letter, thank you letter for being a patron. And if you are the $1 side, I thank you very much, and I appreciate it. So think about this: you get all this extra content plus access to classes and workshops for $1 right now. It may change, but for $1, you get all that, and that's great. And I do Patreon only stuff. We do giveaways on there, and shit like that you only have access to if you're a patron. It's cool. So, and I'm not gonna worry about, oh, well, you paid $10 and you paid $1. Who cares? If you guys care about it, you guys fight about it. I'm not gonna fight about it. If you're a patron of mine and giving me money for stuff, you're gonna get content, period. Okay, here we go. Oh, legs. Oh. I need to build me a bolster block, a drifting block. That hole's looking good. We'll go back through one more time. All right, folks. There she is in all of her glory. Good looking hammer. I really like it. A lot of other people really like it. This will have one more drift through there before we quench to get it sized. So I'm going to stick this back in the forge. We're going to let it heat up, shut the forge off, and let it cool down. And then we will see all of you. I'm going to put it right back in the back of the forge. We're going to let that heat up. Now, another thing I want to talk about. At rustyironforge.com, we have a fire sale, which is basically a raffle going on right now for the kitchen axe. And I've been meaning I need to do a video on that. I'll probably do a video on that this weekend. A usage video on that this weekend with some limbs and stuff, just to show what it can do cutting wise. It is an axe for the kitchen, which is basically a meat cleaver. That's basically what it is. It's a really fancy looking meat cleaver. And $5 a spot. Max spots per person is 5. So for $25, you can get 5 spots. It's underneath the fire sale tab at rustyironforge.com. And you can get on there, take a look at it. It comes with lifetime guarantee and care instructions for it. If anything ever happens to it in the normal operation of that piece, then it's 100% replaceable. And if I can't fix it, if I can fix it, let's say scales come off or whatever, it shouldn't happen. Or it breaks, shouldn't happen. Normal operation of that thing, it should never break. It's an heirloom piece. Your grandkids will have that piece. But if it does, lifetime guarantee as long as I'm alive. So it's a $300 value and $5 a spot. I think we have 20 spots filled right now. So we have 40 more spots to fill, and I would like to get that thing off the ground and going. So take a look at it, rustyironforge.com, fire sale. Also, while you're on there, you can check out the live broadcast schedule underneath the online content. It will change every week. We're going to try and do at least one live stream a week, possibly 2 live streams a week. Now, I'm doing 4 in the week, but depending on what your content availability is, if you're a Patreon member, you're going to get 4. So you're going to get the initials and the ending on Patreon. If you're just YouTube subscriber, which I love you, I can't wait to get more subscribers. That's another thing. Please share the hell out of this stuff. I'm not on Facebook anymore, so I don't share anything on Facebook. Please share my stuff. It's word of mouth is the only way I advertise anymore. I am on Instagram, so I do have that. Instagram is rusty_hammer_forge, and I should put a graphic up with this stuff, but I'm not to the point on YouTube yet to where I can put clickable links and everything. I'd like to get there. That's the main reason. I don't really care about the monetizing value of it. Yeah, it's great. Everybody likes making a little extra money, but I want to do it to advertise. So I do all this stuff to advertise, to help educate, to teach. And I don't care if I'm teaching. I mean, I think I'm teaching a good way of doing things. But there's Smiths out there and there's people out there that'll look at it and they'll go, yeah, don't do that. That's fine. It's still teaching. I'm just maybe in someone's opinion, just teaching you what not to do, type of deal. Um, it's fine with me. Everybody's entitled to their own opinion. And, I've been doing this since 2009. And I picked up a hammer first in 2005, dabbled in it, kind of screwed around, wasn't really serious about it until 4 years later. And then, I was just like, hey, let's do this. And it was just all kind of off and on. Um, for the last 5 to 6 years, I've been doing this every single day. But I've been working at it, you know, with the idea that I want to create a legacy, something to be remembered by since 2009. I've taken 2 classes from 2 very experienced Smiths, and that through our nonprofit, and it was and those only classes was hammer technique, how to swing a hammer. That's the only classes I've taken. Now I've audited other classes just because I like seeing what other Smiths do. I watch other Smiths. I love learning about what they're doing and how they're doing it. And I watch Black Bear Forge. I watch Fire Creek Forge. I watch um, Mike Rowley when he has stuff up. I watch David Roeder when he has stuff up. Of course, I get it firsthand from Mike Rowley and Dave Roeder a lot of times too. We usually team up at least once or twice a year, and Roeder's over at my shop quite a bit. So I get a lot of bounce back from them. But in this day and age, there's no excuse for not learning. YouTube is not the best way to learn, but it's a good way to start. There's a lot of very good Smiths on YouTube that teach hammer technique, and you can watch how they do things. If you emulate Black Bear Forge, understand that it's taken him probably 3 to 4 takes to get it right to what you're seeing, but the technique is there. As an experienced Smith, I don't care what forge he's using. I'd rather see the gas forge being used over the coal forge because it's quicker. Um, so a lot less editing on his part too if he uses a gas forge. But I look at his hammer technique, the tools he uses, the tools he's built, and then I try and build those tools in my own shop because I'm like, that is cool. I need to do that because I do a lot of the stuff that he does. Fire Creek Forge, I look at how he's building Damascus and all that other stuff. Um, and, Elijah's a really competent Smith. He's done a very good job for himself, built a very good following and community. Excellent freaking bladesmith to watch and blacksmith. He does a lot of blacksmith stuff too. Not on his channel. It's mainly knives on his channel, but he does very good work. And I watch him and see, man, I need to make that for my press, or I need to do this, or I need to do that, type of deal. So um, when you're starting out in this craft, use the resources that you have. If Look around, who's around you that is a Smith? Do they teach classes? Go save the money and go take an in-person class, right? And then use YouTube, use Instagram, use Facebook as a way to build on that craft. Don't just use YouTube or just use Facebook as a way to learn the craft. Go out there and learn it firsthand from a Smith in the trenches who's been doing it for at least 5 years. At least 5 years. And grill them. How long you been teaching classes? Okay, well, how long you been smithing? If they've only been teaching classes for a year, but they've been smithing for 10, that's fine. If they've been teaching classes for 5 and they've been smithing for 5, I don't know. Everybody learns differently. You look at their body of work and talk to them. talk to other people who've taken classes from them, see how they work, see how they are. You know, the greatest thing that you can do for me if you've taken a class from me is leave a review. I'm going to start putting a review tab up on my website. Leave a review, good, bad, or bad, or ugly. I'm going to make it public. I don't care. If you don't like what I did, fine. Let me know and let everybody else know. I don't like what he does, but give a reason why. Don't just say I don't like it, because that just says that you're an imbecile. So do your research. If you're into this type of stuff, go take a class. If you're over by in my side of the world, Walla Walla, Washington, take a class. Call me up. Numbers on the homepage. RustHammerForge.com, top of the page and the bottom of the page. So give me a call. Let's get her done. All right, she's heated up. I'm going to shut the forge off. But first, let's get over here and wrap this stuff up here real quick. Oh gosh, I got more legs tonight. I'm doing legs every day. Good stuff. So, as always, everybody, I really truly appreciate you and everything you do for me. Even if it's just popping on and saying good morning, and like Morgan did, and saying hi, because it's support. It lets me know people out there watching, and I truly appreciate it. Another shout out to Colin Riley. If you're looking at it, here's a young Smith, perfect example of what I was just talking about. Young Smith, Colin Riley. His uncle's Justin Riley, my old apprentice, great guy, good friend, good Smith. Colin and Justin had Colin take a class from me. So Colin comes up. He's from Pennsylvania, comes to Washington, spends some time with the family in here. I teach him a class with his uncle, and he goes home and starts a YouTube page, a Facebook page, a business, Germantown Forge. Look that up. Young Colin Riley, Germantown Forge. Great aspiring smith, starting out super young. By the time he has 10 years in, he will be in his early 20s. Starting out really young, and lots and lots of talent in that young boy. So show him some love. Get on his page, Germantown Forge, and tell him Rust Hammer Forge sent you. So y'all take it easy out there. Stay safe, be well, and forge on.